Hi everybody, I'm Manuel and I'm co-founder of Emiria, a studio developing VR games and interactive installations, and founder of the studio Di Fluctum, working on experimental films. Lately I was exploring the ShotBuilder workflow for an upcoming short film and how to integrate it in a small team. Because there was little coverage online about the topic, I thought to pack it in a tutorial, showing you a simple instruction and explanation on what ShotBuilder is and how its core elements work. Note that everything in the tutorial is really simplified and is intended to get you started with the workflow without becoming too complex. So let's start. We start first with a short overview of the core elements. ShotBuilder is a USD workflow introduced in Houdini 21. It is designed to provide a structured pipeline in a box for managing USD-based projects. ShotBuilder guides you through a specific way of organizing your work. The entire workflow is defined by a Json file. This file acts as a blueprint, telling Houdini what your project hierarchy will look like. In ShotBuilder, units are the building blocks of your project hierarchy. These aren't limited to just shots. You can define units for anything such as environments, sequences, and so on, and each unit type is defined by a different set of USD layers. The hyper-resolver is SideFX's built-in asset resolver. An asset resolver functions as a black box that handles all the complicated file paths, processing, and versioning for you. In this tutorial, we will look into each of these elements in detail and set them up step by step together in a really simple way. This ShotBuilder workflow also comes with its own specific Houdini UI elements and nodes. First, ShotBuilder is a Solaris context exclusive workflow. Then, we also need a ShotBuilder project pane tab. You can find it here under the Solaris tab, and this shows the complete project structure and related informations. After you will set up a ShotBuilder project, this drop-down menu here will appear. This allows you to switch between shots within your current Houdini session. Also, the ShotBuilder workflow has its own set of nodes. We will go through them step by step. Let's start now with the setup. In an empty Houdini file, come here in the ShotBuilder pane tab and select Create New Project. Then here we have the option to choose between having sublayers or no sublayers in our project. The sublayer option is the one primarily intended with this workflow. This setup creates a structure where you can manage distinct layers for different tasks such as assets, layouts, camera, lighting, and so on. For this purpose, we will select sublayers. Automatically, it puts a default project JSON file together, which is this, predefining our units and sublayers. We are going to adapt this to our needs, but for now just save it, because we are going to open it in VS Code for better editing. Very important, this file has to be saved exactly where your HIP file is. This is a default location where Houdini looks for the file. Alternatively, also a custom location can be set up via an environment variable called Houdini ShotBuilder project path. You can add this in your Houdini environment file and specify the path to your JSON file. So opening the JSON file in VS Code, we can start having a look what this does. It defines exactly the project hierarchy, which is also visible in our Houdini file. The script starts with the project name, followed by the unit types of the project. As default, we have a shot unit defined. We will see how you can also add more units as well. Within each unit, we can create different elements, different shots. For example, we create shot 001, 002 and so on, and each one will have different USD layers structured inside. For example, a shot might be configured with a layer stack consisting of environment, animation, look depth, layouting and so on. Each USD layer is typically defined by a name and its default file extension. So let's adapt this JSON file to our needs. First, I rename the project, and then the unit shot I leave as default. But I would like to change the sublayers. For example, the lighting sublayer, I change to look depth. Then the others are fine for me, but I would like to add one more. Therefore, simply copy and paste one sublayer element like this, and I name it camera. Also, don't forget to put here a column and make sure that here at the end is no column placed. As next, you can see that all the sublayers are saved out as USDA files. This is principally great as the file stays human readable, but when you export directly geometry or animation, file size becomes incredibly large and unmanageable as well. Therefore, I change them all to USD. Now we have a look on how to add new units. We can see that this here represents a whole unit. By simply copy and pasting it here again, we can create a new one. Important, again, to add the column, and for this example I rename it to assets. Also, I only need 2 sublayers here, therefore I delete all except 2. Then I name one model and the other one look dev. Here the name I also change to something like this. This name will just appear as a hint on how to name your element when creating a new entry. We will see this in a moment. Now we can save this and open our Houdini file. We see immediately that our JSON file is read incorrectly, and we proceed setting up our shots. Come here over the shot unit and right click and select Add New Shot. We can see now here the sublayers, which will be added to this shot. I name my shots as 001, click Create to add the shot, but keep the window open so we can directly add the next ones, which are 002 and then 003. Here in the ShotBuilder project we can see them now added correctly. Next, for this example, I also add entries for the assets. These are of course just arbitrary examples meant for this tutorial. This created elements and file structure is also mirrored on your drive. So you can see here, for example, the shots folders, and inside we can find our shot USD file. Opening this, we can see that this one includes the information of all the sublayers which need to be loaded in for this shot. This looks correct, and also we can see that we have the ShotBuilder drop-down menu now appearing up here. This is an extremely flexible way to switch between shots or assets without leaving the scene or worrying about versioning and loading in the necessary elements. But in order to work with this, we need the ShotBuilder nodes. The ShotBuilder workflow has a few but very powerful nodes for this. The first node we need is a shot load. This node is used to bring your shot data into the scene. It looks at your project structure and loads all the relevant USD files for whichever shot you have selected here up in the drop-down menu. Right now we see that everything loaded incorrectly, but all our USD layers are currently empty. In order to add something to these layers, we need the shot layer edit node. You can add the node by right-clicking on the layer you want to edit and select edit layer or create layer depending if the layer was initiated before or not. With this, it places automatically a shot layer edit node with the right syntax in it for editing the layer. Of course, this can also be done manually by simply connecting a shot layer edit node. And then here for the target layer, you can select in the drop-down menu the corresponding one and then change here the beginning and also the shot name into an asterisk. This will allow you to edit the corresponding layer on all the shots in your list. We dive inside the node, and this is where the actual work happens. Any changes you make are saved only to this specific layer. As an example, I just place a simple grid. And now let's export this USD layer. For this we come up and add a shot output node. With this node you can export the USD layers you were currently editing and also rendering out individual shots. Leaving it at publish, we now need to specify where our layers needs to be exported to. The layout USD layer we were currently working on exists only in the shot units. Therefore, I will write asterisk shot /asterisk. With this way, it will only run over all the corresponding layers within the shots. Now simply hit save to disk. Also, it could happen that you might run into an error like this. This could either be when your syntax for the export is wrong, or like in my case, you need to open the node and then come in here to top network and set the faulty node to cook in process. Coming back out and hitting save, it works now. Perfect. Inspecting our file explorer, we can see that it created the shot layout USD folder with a file inside. Also here in the shot load, we can see the update being applied immediately. Important to understand, like this, we added the plane to the layout USD layer for all the shots we created. In this idea, you create one setup, which result is incorporated in all the shots automatically. But let's say you want to have individual changes in the scene layout for the different shots. For this, you use a shot switch node. This allows you to create branches with changes for individual shots and saving them out automatically. In my case, I want all of my 3 shots and set it up like this accordingly. Now we added 3 outputs and each of them belongs to one shot. And I can now start adding elements for the individual shots. The core idea is that, for example, one layout artist can work on all shots simultaneously in one single script. Also important to notice, whenever I work on a specific branch, it switches automatically to that specific shot, which is extremely handy. Highlighting the output node, you can switch between the shots with the drop-down menu up here and see how the scene updates. Coming back up, right now we see in the shot load that our layer has the version 1, but now when we export it, we see that it updates to version 2, and this is correct. The asset resolver takes care in the background to make these updates automatically, but additionally the reset button here can refresh the list and automatically load the latest version in. Another very strong concept for this workflow and the hyper resolver is the ability to select and pin previous versions here in the shot load. For this, come here and right click on a layer and select Set Version Pins. In this new window you can select here different versions and then click Apply to pin it. Now only this version is loaded in and stays like this instead of the latest. The next aspect we are going to have a look is adding sublayers. For example, let's say you created a look depth layer, but you later realize that you're going to have two people working on once the shading and once the lighting for the scene. Both can't or should not work on the same layer, and subdividing the look depth layer into a shading and the lighting USD layer is the better approach. You can do this with a shot layer edit node. But this time you leave everything by default and you choose create new layer. And the layer name is shading.usd, and here it is important to add the .usd, otherwise it won't work. With a shot output node we export it in the same way as before. And checking the shot load, we can see the successfully added new sublayer. For the second sublayer we repeat this action. Increase the index here now to 1 and name it lighting.usd. Here now, really important, deselect clear source layer. If you don't, it will delete your previously created shading USD layer. Having this set up, we wire it now to the shot output node again and export it. Perfect. We can see now that the two new sublayers are in our hierarchy. Now let's have a look on a very simplified example on why this workflow is so powerful and how to apply it. Imagine you have 5 artists working on a scene with multiple shots in it. Each of the artists has a different field they are focusing on and also have their own individual Houdini file. The idea is that each of them can work individually and their results get published into the pipeline. Important, each artist can work on multiple shots simultaneously in one file and flexibly switch between them. From the artist's perspective, they not only work on the parts separately, but get all the time the latest scene and informations loaded in the current session automatically. This is extremely powerful, as for example the layout artist does get automatically updated models, lighting, animations and so on as the development progresses in parallel. In our current Houdini setup, for example, an artist creates a shading setup like this for our grid with individual changes for the shot. They can export then this layer, and a lighting artist loads in the latest scene and can place the general environment light for all the shots. They then export this layer for all the shots as well. And when we go back to the layout artists, they can refresh the scene and have all the changes updated automatically. They can also inspect different shots on the fly and decide if it would better to change one asset to a specific shot. For example, here the assets in the first shot is being changed and then published again to the pipeline. Back to the lighting artist, they as well see these changes now automatically and can check if the light still works or not. This is of course really simplified, but I hope you can see the potential of this workflow and how this can be used also in smaller teams. As last point for this tutorial, we are going to have a look on nested layers. We have seen that you can create different unit types like shots, assets, environments, and so on. Additionally, elements of these individual units can be embedded inside other units. In order to set this up, we need to open the JSON file. And first, we create a new unit and call it environment. And for simplicity, let's keep only the model sublayer. Now, in order to set up the embedding functionality, we come up here into the shot unit and write 2 underlines, then the name of our unit, which is NV for environment, and then again 2 underlines, followed by 2 curly brackets. In this environment unit, we then can create in Houdini a new element, which can be embedded into one or multiple shots. And now back in Houdini, I just quickly set up an environment, and also I add this template setup to it. This looks good. And now when we create a new shot unit, here in the window, a drop-down menu appears, which allows you to select an environment unit to embed into this shot. Setting this up, we can see now here the result in the hierarchy, as well as in the scene when we load in the shot. Also, we can still embed this in already existing shots as well, by coming here on a shot, right-clicking it and add it. And with a refresh or restart of the Houdini scene, this will be applied. Perfect. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope this tutorial was useful and it was good to follow along. If you don't want to miss the next Houdini tutorial, subscribe to my channel and also leave a like. This would help a lot. See you in the next one. Ciao.